going to go there. I'm going to talk about grief today. And it wasn't even planned. It wasn't on my radar to talk about it today, but it, in a naturally occurring way, it popped up on my radar for today. And the way that happened was I was planning on working out this morning, and got my kids off to school, started to get ready, go through my routine, and I started to notice that there was like a ribbon of grief sort of floating through my body in a very subtle way initially. It would have been easy to miss. But like I've mentioned in other videos, part of learning to develop your mind-body connection and make it stronger is that you start to pay attention throughout your day to signals that your body is sending you so that you can be more mindfully attuned to those and adjust in order to meet your somatic needs in a kinder, more gentle, and sort of present way, which is part of the reparenting process. It's kind of what you would have liked to receive when you were growing up, is this really attuned, cued in, responsive parenting process, but that's often not what people get. And no shame to anyone's parents. Usually what we are taught, or what we teach, the lesson we get from our experiences when we're young, is kind of to just push it aside and all of that. So to undo that, developing this mind-body awareness is really powerful and really worthwhile. So that's what I was doing this morning, as I was recognizing, wow, there is something here for me. And I could sense it because I was sort of my own personal cue in the moment. The first one was that I was feeling a little numb. And then that got me curious, and I was like, why am I sort of numbing out, a bit? And then I realized that there was this sadness, and it was strong enough where I decided to not work out and to actually set aside time to sit with that. Because in other days I might have decided to work out, because sometimes movement is a great resource when we're feeling that, to just sort of move that energy through the body. And it can actually be the medicine that we need. But on this morning, what I felt like my body was saying is just sit with it, just be with it. And so that is a lesson in and of itself, that depending on the day, what you need might be different, right? For me today, I could tell I needed to sit with this. And so what I did was I found a spot that it seemed like was calling out to me, that seemed comfortable. And today it happened to be on the couch. And I just sort of got a blanket, and I started feeling into the body and what was there for me. And I can explain a little bit more in a separate video about what that process might look like. I think it might even be nice to record a video where I walk you through the process of tuning into the body and feeling into the specific areas where you're experiencing sensation, and letting your awareness rest in those areas. But that's sort of what I started doing. And I definitely got hit by a wave of grief. Because where I felt like my body was leading me was to specific traumatic experiences that I had when my husband was, when I found out he was not going to live more than 24 to 48 hours. The way we found out was that we knew that he had cancer, but we thought that he had lots of time as long as he got chemo, and then he ended up having a bowel rupture. And once he had the bowel rupture checked out by x-ray, they essentially said, this is substantial enough, and your body is so fragile that you aren't likely to survive more than 24 to 48 hours. So it was a very traumatic sort of smack in the face, punch to the gut. And then everything that we experienced after that was also traumatic, having to bring my kids in and us say goodbye to him, and being with him until he took his final breaths, and all of the things, right? So I haven't had a wave of grief hit in a really hard, substantial way in a while, because it's 3 years out. it's been 3 years. So, with time, the waves come more slowly. They don't come as often in the beginning. They hit daily or multiple times a day, and then they come less and less, but they still come. Grief still hits even years later. And what I've noticed is that it's really best to sit with them when they do, to not push it away, but to see it as part of like the holy process of having loved somebody who's no longer here, that it really becomes like a holy spiritual moment to let the memory rest in you, and to let your nervous system heal another layer of what it experienced. And the way that we do that is that we really just hold it. We hold ourselves, we hold our nervous system through the process of being hit with the wave, and really deeply attuned to it again, like you would a small child, um, and in whatever way would feel good to you in the moment. So it is a matter of listening to your body and sensing like what in this moment would feel comforting. And so I did have a wave of grief hit. I went through the process of writing it out. I sort of think of it as like a wave hitting the shore. And it's, if you were standing on the shore, you might be knocked to your knees, right? But then you kind of like, the wave starts to subside and you can kind of get up, get your bearings, and it recedes off into the ocean again, and you can restabilize. And so just riding that process out in a really loving, attentive, attuned way is the practice for me. And the reason why I wanted to make a video about this to begin with is because I feel as though we're really not taught how to ride the waves of a strong emotion like grief. Nobody really sits us down as a kid and says, hey, here are things that we can do when we're hit with experiences like this. And so teaching it is important to me. And it doesn't have to be just grief. So this is a way that you can meet yourself in a lot of strong, difficult emotions. So anyway, after that first wave hit, what I could sense was the wave had subsided back into the ocean, but I could also tell another was coming. I kind of had this awareness that like this wasn't it for this morning's practice. There was more in the body. I could feel it sort of rippling around. And so I was kind of ready to sit with another wave. And at that point, I decided to set up my camera on my phone because of the very purpose that I just mentioned. We don't talk about what this is like. We don't really have teachers that very often that show what it's like. And so I thought, what better way to counter that by actually just going ahead and in this vulnerable way, just to let the process be filmed and seen. So I set up my phone, and then I just resumed the process of sitting with whatever I was feeling in my body, like I already described, until the next wave hit. And then I just recorded the short process of me writing that out. And the second time it was a little shorter. All in all, between both waves, it was maybe 40 minutes. With the first one being longer, and with because you're sort of gearing up to feel into it, and that can take some time, right? And what I want to say about it before I show the clip is that some people might say, why would you lean into a painful experience? Like you're supposed to move beyond that, and it isn't sort of wallowing in it counterproductive. And I think that actually that mindset is part of why so many people don't have an opportunity to process what is in their bodies, because there's so little support and encouragement for facing what it is our bodies actually naturally do. If we frame it as though this is wallowing, then we don't really give permission for people to have bodies that actually do experience this whether we let them or not. And so if I had buried this and went about my day, what I might end up noticing is that I might have gotten a headache. I might have really zoned out most of the day. I might have been really irritable and not very attuned to my kids' needs or even my clients' needs. I might have like snacked, like emotionally ate more than, it's just sort of self-soothe. There are a lot of ways that this would have impacted me negatively sideways, in ways that are not productive to how I want to show up in the world and not productive to my well-being. And so a lot of times when people show up for therapy, it is because they're experiencing those types of side effects that I just mentioned, like they're irritable all the time, or they're emotionally eating, or they're not sleeping, or they're having chronic stress headaches, or they're having panic attacks, or they're all of these symptoms that are actually often part of a just side effects of a bigger issue, which is that on the day to day, there's something or some things that they're not allowing themselves to feel, that they're not allowing themselves permission to for their body to communicate, to them in maybe very important messages about um, things that are not okay, that are going on in their lives, or things that they've been through that were really traumatic that just need some space and time to heal from. And so I really feel like when it comes to grief, but not just grief, all kinds of things, that that doing the somatic work it's a universal way of targeting this lack of attunement and lack of permission giving and flipping it on its head and saying, no, we are going to give permission. We are going to give room and space. We're going to create a schedule and a lifestyle that actually normalizes this. We're going to create enough flexibility and room in our lives when we can, so that it is possible, whenever possible, to carve out a little bit of time to let a wave of emotion through the body, so that then we can be clear for the rest of the day. So this is really important to me. I think it's really critical as a mindset in terms of like it's sort of like basic hygiene for spiritual hygiene and emotional hygiene for owning a body, for owning a feeling emotional system. Basic care and hygiene of that system requires that we let the body have permission to do what it's going to do anyway, so that we don't suffer the consequences of that arise when we block those natural processes. So all of this is sort of set up an explanation for the actual clip that I'll also attach to this video of me writing through the waves of emotion with that second wave. So because I didn't have the phone set up the first time, so it's just a little bit of the second time. And afterwards, I'll come back on and film a little bit or record a little bit of explanation about what I was doing. But before I do that, and before I go ahead and show you the clip, I want to say for you to watch it through the lens of, what do you see me doing? See if you can notice what it is I'm doing in the moment to try and be really present with myself and to try and soothe. It's really simple stuff. So, just kind of be on the lookout for what it is that you notice I'm doing, and think about how it is that you naturally meet your own feelings when you're hit by a wave of emotion. Just sort of be reflecting on that as you watch it, and then I'll sort of talk through a little bit of it after. All right, here's the clip. Okay, so super vulnerable to record that and to share that, but I do want these videos to sometimes, not just be about sharing information, but sharing my humanity, because I think it's really important for us to remind one another that we're all human beings, that we all have hard experiences, that, like, behind the highlight reel of our lives that we usually see on one another's social media, that there is a whole person, and that life is sometimes hard, right? And this is how we learn from one another. And I know that I really appreciate when other people share little windows into, their realness. So, what did you see in terms of what I was trying to do? Even in, you don't want to overcomplicate when you're holding space for yourself. You really just want to, in other words, this is not a time to like engage in all kinds of techniques, because you're not going to be accessing that part of your brain that thinks that way. You're going to be in this really feeling place, and you want to be, right? But even from that position, what I tried to do was remind myself that it is helpful to do certain things. So I was trying to hold myself. And the reason why, because in my body at that time, I felt like I was being squeezed on the inside. And so I wanted to counter that with pressure on the outside. So sort of contain and feel supported in that. That was something that I could tell my body, that felt good in my body in that moment. But other moments, it might be something else. So the main message being to tune into what you feel like would feel good to you at the time, and let it be different each time. In that moment, it was sort of that containment. I was also doing some intentional breathing, and I was feeling like that was super helpful too. As I was sort of trying to stabilize and myself as the wave was hitting, and also as it was receding. So I was using this breathing technique that is all, people will describe it as like sniffing a flower, blowing out a birthday candle. So it's the, and so you really do want to visualize, if you practice it right now, you're like sniffing the flower. It's not just a slow, gentle inhale, it's a sniff. And then it's a blowing out the candle shape with your lips, which slows down the air coming out, and that slows down your exhale. And when we have a longer exhale than inhale, it initiates the parasympathetic nervous system. And that part of our nervous system helps us to shift out of fight or flight. So it's this rest, it's this calming state. And extending your exhales longer than your inhales has a way of stimulating that. So I was intentionally trying to use that, although sometimes I wasn't able to. So you might have seen that. Um, I I definitely was sort of curled in on myself. That's something that I often feel like I need to do. I think it's actually something that we're wired to do when we're riding out a wave of grief. So that feels very supportive. What it reminds me of, what it felt like at the time is like if you were on a beach and hit by a wave, what you would notice yourself doing is trying to get stability. Or let's say you had a kid with you, like a toddler, you would sort of like apply pressure around them to hold them steady, right? And you would sort of like curl in on them and you would sort of hunker down. And that's kind of what it felt like I was doing. That's why I think the analogy of being hit by a wave on a beach is so um, speaks to me when it comes to those moments of just riding a wave of grief out. Um, and then as it was receding, what I tried to do was soften and relax the body, sort of like uncurl and let the body, my shoulders drop, let my face soften, slowly start to, I like soften my eyes. And what that did was it let all of this moisture that was building up behind my eyelids kind of release, which, and then I always like to make contact with my chest to bring support and to feel like um, attuned, I guess, attuned to by myself. I like to put pressure in the chest area. These are things that are sort of like I've learned help me. I really often, I don't think I did it in this video, but I often will, even just when I'm stressed out or, worried or something, I like to make contact with like my neck area. That's very soothing to me. Um, and then hands on the face is always, at the end, I noticed that that's something that I felt drawn to do is sort of hold my own face. So these are a few things. I feel like I'm missing something, but that's okay. My point being that we really aren't taught that it's okay to just say, let me clear the space. Let me find where I want to sit or lay down. Let me go through a process of meeting this wave, writing it out, being really soft and nurturing toward myself, um, letting it not be overcomplicated, but also letting it be a process, and then letting that loop close, which is, it signals to that. When I say the loop close, what I mean is like when you enter fight or flight or anything like that, it's like you're opening this stress response loop and then you want to ride it all the way out until it's closed when the wave is receding. And that's when you know you've contained it and held it all the way from point A to point B. And that feels really healing to the body, as opposed to when we cut the loop short and we're like, moving on, enough of that. And so you want to sort of gently let yourself arrive at the other shore, essentially, if that makes sense. A lot of metaphors. Anyway, this video is getting really long. I'll probably share it in pieces, but and except on my YouTube, which it'll probably be the whole video, but it'll be too long for Instagram, TikTok, whatever. So I hope this was helpful. My videos won't always be this long, but I felt like I needed to go into a little bit more depth regarding grief because it's a very complicated topic that we just don't talk about. We don't talk about it a lot, and a lot of people are just left floundering in a moment of being hit by a wave because they don't know how to hold it, or they do everything they can to avoid feeling it because they don't know how to hold it, and they feel like it's going to kill them or they're going to die or it's going to take them down. So people self-medicate and they do all kinds of things to avoid this work because we're not taught how, right? So I hope this is helpful. Let me know in the comments if it was. It's super helpful for me to know that. And yeah, just share with whoever you think it might help. Thank you.